Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Friday Night Chat Show. We are very, very excited to be here, and we can't wait for this show and tonight's guest, who has just joined us in the magical green room of ours, which is really glitzy is the word. I don't know, but it's just a pretend green room. So, but anyway, we hope you're fine, and we hope you've had a great day and a great week, in fact. And Chris, how are you?
Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting start because up until like 10 seconds ago, we didn't have a guest. So I'm glad we've got one, and it's going to be amazing to have that guest on the show that we have announced already.
It is.
But yeah, it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday chat shows. I mean, how lucky are people?
I don't know. I think we've 2 weeks in a row. We got 3 shows again next week, which is insane. And I've got a show myself tomorrow with somebody in the community, which you guys know.
Going up in the world, Mr. Aggett.
Yeah, I think so. So it's great that you were engaging and in the chat already. We chat to a lot of you guys through Twitter in the week anyway. So it's fantastic to see you come in on and chatting. And you got such a great relationship between you, which we love. So well done. Definitely. And it's a lovely community. So, Chris, what's going on? Any news?
It's actually one of my really good friends' birthdays today. A real life friend. This is not an internet friend because we've got loads of those, but this is a real life physical friend who my son can poke with a stick. So yeah, I was careful how I was phrasing that then. But I'm sure we're going to talk about being poked maybe later with certain characters, maybe. So kind of a tedious link. But yeah, so we went for a lovely outdoor, socially distant picnic for Jodie Schofield's birthday, who people know. So happy birthday to you. I'm not going to sing because it might embarrass you, but yeah.
Well, come on. You've done it plenty of times before that.
I have.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So what we'll do, as always, guys, we'll get the beer token promotion done, which is fantastic. So the community supports us by, promoting their book. Then we'll have the guest. We'll introduce the guest on. We'll have a great conversation at the first half of the show. We'll ask questions, do our usual thing. In the second half of the show, you guys can ask questions to us as well and to our guests. So make sure while you're watching, if you get any questions, lovely looking cover, any questions, make sure you keep them in your mind. So when we say, the second half of the show, we want your questions in, send them in. And I hope you're enjoying your Friday night and not just watching this intently. Relax, have a drink, chill out. So, Chris, Beer Token book promotion. Today, in fact, it's another special one because it's actually their book release day today, which is always very cool. Yes, nice. And I realize
book birthday to you.
Yes, indeed. So that book is, if you look at the bottom of your screen right now, is called Crystar, which is a very cool name. First Fragment by Nico Savoy, and that is available on Kindle paperback and ebook, which is very cool. And the bio is, what is the most important thing to ask when you are magically transported to another world? I don't know, Chris. There's some questions I would ask. Everything is important. What are you nuts? Deshi is your average teenage gamer. He didn't think much of his life until he no longer had it. Although he loves fantasy, nothing prepares him for suddenly waking up in another world. Even worse, the realm of Thera has already lost its battle to an unparalleled villain, and it could be him. But our hero has no choice, right? Everyone has a choice. Well, when the Crystar is involved, who knows what the possibilities are? That's a fantasy book, and it sounds fantastic. So please do check that out and support the authors that support the show. And I know what you're going to say, Chris.
Do you? Because I don't know what I was going to say.
Well, yeah, I've got to put the cover up in the corner, right?
Yeah. Oh, I thought I was. No, it's all right. I'm going to make a Crystar reference, but I'm not going to do that now.
Okay. Well, there it is.
I'll just look in the corner.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hello. That guest is the guest. The author of that book is in fact there. Yes, it is out today. So congratulations to you.
Brilliant.
And thank you for supporting the show. So tonight's guest, Chris, are you ready?
I am.
Yes, and I hope you're ready in the audience too, and I hope I'm ready. You know what I'm like. So tonight's guest, she's been a celebrity agent and now clearly an author, and started a career at Top of the Pops, which is amazing, and has built a reputation as one of the most leading and music entertainment managers in the UK, which is a fantastic reputation to have, and has been called a force of nature by BBC Breakfast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Melanie. Hello.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. A force of nature. I think they might have meant hurricane.
Well, to be called anything by BBC Breakfast is fantastic, I guess, and it's fantastic for you to be here with us. We're very grateful. And how are you doing?
Oh, great, really great. I was having some technical issues, as you know. But I managed
Indeed.
to get in. You guys will be on a very special server, but here I am, and I love what you do, and I love the fact that it's so nice to be part of the community where we can actually all talk about what really goes on behind the scenes of books as well as what you see out, because so much goes into that journey before you get published and what's that being published. That I think it's always good to be able to really talk to people from every different side of the coin. So ask me anything.
Yeah,
wow, the emails are already coming in, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hurricane, love it. Definitely, and it's great, and it really is good. This community is so strong, and they're very supportive and help each other. And what we've really learned on this show is everyone has a different style or a different approach to what they do, and a different journey in life, and which is something we love to dig into the very first thing with a guest on the show. So we want to find out, and I mean, you have an impressive career full of stories and sort of journeys of success and ups and downs. But what we want to find out right now is how did that transpire into writing your first book? Where did that start, and how did that start for you?
So if you're talking about the Thundergirls, my first book, so that's quite an unusual story because I wrote that book when I was 19. And you briefly mentioned earlier that I worked at Top of the Pops, and I did work at Top of the Pops. And what I witnessed at Top of the Pops was that I saw many bands that were reuniting, and it was clear that it was for the price of the check and not that I wanted to be there. So I witnessed several huge reunions of bands that wouldn't speak to each other, that didn't want to be anywhere near each other, that literally, and then as soon as the cameras were on, they were like, hi, we're so happy to be together, we love each other. And it got me thinking. I was also a freelance journalist at the time, and there used to be a tour called the Here and Now tour where they used to put 80s acts together on a bus. And I went on one of the buses to do a piece for a newspaper, and I came back and with the most amazing expose. They were like, we can't run this. And I was like, why? They were like, because we'll never get access to any of them ever again. And I was like, but it's brilliant. And they were like, well, you can't do it. So I wrote this book about a girl group that haven't seen each other for 30 years, used to be the biggest girl group in the UK, but only for 2 years. One of them leaves, as is always the way, but does a very special thing. She invokes a clause, which means none of them can perform any of the material without her. And she takes the manager with her. Anyway, they haven't seen each other for 30 years. And 30 years later, when we find them, she needs them to reunite with her for a ginormous gig at Wembley that she can't do on her own. So it becomes the tale of how do you get that group back together that hate each other. And of course, I had worked as a manager myself for some massive bands, and Spice Girls and Destiny's Child, and I'd seen it all up close and personal. So they say write about what you know, and
well, I mean, that is something that seems to be very apparent perhaps these days as well, because there's a lot of bands, I guess, in those eras, the 90s, for example, that are doing the rounds now. Do you think that's still being replicated in this music industry now?
Oh, behind closed doors. I mean, if you saw the Spice Girls before they did that tour, they did a photo, didn't they, where they're all having dinner. Victoria Beckham at the dinner. She wasn't on the tour.
That's true.
Something went down at that dinner.
Definitely.
That made her go, I can't do this again. Like, and so we turned the Thundergirls into a play, and it was a play, and it was just the reunion dinner. And the most fascinating part of any band reunion as a manager, which is what I was back then, is that you have to get all of the people from the band around a table to try and air all their grievances. Wow. And whether they can go on the road together again. Every manager has to do that. I've done 3. They are nights from hell.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure McFly recently had a really impressive documentary on telly where they actually aired all of this stuff. And it was very honest and very open, and it showed the real struggles that these people deal with.
Well, totally, because the thing is that, I mean, Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics said a very poignant thing many years ago. Most pop stars suffer with paradise syndrome, which is once you've got everything, you can go out in front of 100,000 people and you don't come off feeling fulfilled. You can go back to your £5 million mansion in your Porsche, and if you're a guy, there's a gorgeous woman waiting there, or a woman, vice versa, or whatever, depending on what your sexuality is. And you're not happy. What's next? George Michael was a great example of that. That nothing was enough, and sad deaths. Whitney Houston. I spent time with Britney in LA. I saw the state of that. I mean, Thunderglass was a very long journey to being published, which was kind of the original question. So I wrote it when I was 19. Nobody wanted to publish it because it was based on 5 older women. I was living in a bed, I was broke. I needed the money. Top of the Pops only paid £100 a week. I was glad of it. And to be honest, I would have paid them, because what an experience. But and I had an agent at the time who said to me, they will take this if you change the women's ages. And I went, what do you mean? He said, oh, they think they're too old. And I was like, but they have to have lived, loved, lost, learned. They have to be women. And 50 was considered old back then. So I refused. And that book was not published for 20 years.
Wow. When this was all going on and you had the idea, you really wanted to write this because it was something you were passionate about and experienced in. How did, with your experience as a journalist, for example, in that area, was that a simple transition for you, or did you really have to learn the art of writing the story at that point?
No, I literally just went off for a week's holiday and I just wrote it. I write very fast. So Ruthless Women, which we'll talk about later, I literally wrote in 7 weeks.
Wow.
And I wrote the first draft of the Thundergirls in a week. So I do something which is very unusual. I call it purge writing. I vomit the book out and then clean it up. So literally I just write it, and sometimes I'll leave whole sections going, massive argument here, come back to it. Anything to get it over with, anything to get it out, because once you've got it out, you can tidy it up. The problem that nearly all writers that I hear from communicate with me through my socials or anything is people who haven't finished anything. Get it finished. No matter how messy it is, get it finished. Because if it's finished, you can fix it.
Definitely. So at what point, and did you have any idea this was going to happen, that became a play, an on-stage production that was rated fantastically well?
Well, it broke every box office record. And ironically, even though that Thundergirls was a #1 Amazon bestseller, it wasn't a Sunday Times bestseller, it was a #1 Amazon bestseller, which was still a huge achievement for me. Nobody wanted to back the play. The same reason again, they said, oh, who wants to see these older women? Nobody wants to see them. So we put it on and it broke every box office record. The problem is with the industry, I'm working class and I have dyslexia and I come from a broken background. They don't want stories from women like me who are not crying into their material. Oh, here's my play about how awful life is. Oh, let me do a piece about how terrible it was. Like they would give me every prize under the sun if I will cry. I don't want to cry. It's like about amazing women that have done amazing things, that fight adversity, that conquer and are strong, and they don't like it. Even now, Ruthless Women, which is a Sunday Times bestseller, I'm not even stocked in half of the major bookshops because they look down their nose at me, because again, it's about older women fighting it out and being in control. There is such a working class snobism in the literary world. It's unbelievable. Combine that with ageism and women, and it's a miracle that I have hits at all.
So Melanie, how do you go about, like, obviously you've got such a wealth of life experience and all these experiences that you've had and the novels that you've ended up producing, you must sit there and think, oh, I could write about that, I could write about that, I could write about that. So how do you actually decide on what is worth writing about in your mind? How do you go, right, I want to tell this story and I want to do it this way?
I genuinely don't. So if you've ever seen Ghost, and Whoopi Goldberg. I literally am like Whoopi Goldberg. I'm like a medium. Like the characters take over, and when the characters are in charge, I just literally just type. I used to be a ghostwriter years ago, and it's a skill that is very specific because you have to. So I wrote a lot of celebrity autobiographies. Your name is not on them, but it's when I had to pay the bills when I was younger. And you interview a celebrity. I'll think of one celebrity, for example. Her husband had been cheating on her. The book was sold for a lot of money. They wanted the moment of when she found out about the affair and how awful it was and whatever. And I interviewed her 3-4 times, and all I got from her was, I came in, he was there, I went to bed, I knew it was over. And I was like, this is never how am I going to fill this chapter? So you touch type and you hear, and it suddenly becomes, as the car pulled up on what was once our happy home, I knew that inside he was no longer the man that I'd married. As I put my key in the door and I heard that lock go, I knew that things would never be the same again. The last crunch of gravel hit the sound of my shoe, and then I was in, and it was on. And they'd read it back and go, it's just what I said. You learn this rhythm of writing that becomes like being a medium and developing their stories. And I find with my characters, and if you read any of my books, the characters' voices are so strong because they're based on women that I've experienced or men. And so therefore I let them guide me. So I don't choose what to write. I've written so far about the music industry. I was a music manager. I went on to become the most well-known soap actress agent in the UK. So I've now written a book based on a soap opera, and my follow-up book is called Ruthless Men, and I've known a lot of rotten men. So therefore, writing about what I know. When it comes to book 4, that might be the one where you could ask me that question. I really don't know.
Melanie, it's very clear that you are a very, very ambitious person, because once your first book has started becoming a massive play, most people will be very content at that point, thinking there's a lot going on in my life. But you didn't stop there. You thought, do you know what? I'm going to write this next book. I've got plans for this next book to be a TV production, a soap production. And now you've already got the book next again in lined up. So how have you got that drive, and where did that come from?
Okay, so my drive comes from being incredibly poor. And so my family, we lived on food bank handouts, charity shop clothes, free school dinners. And back then, I mean, I suspect I'm a little bit older than you boys. And back then, which was in the 80s and 90s, they really enjoyed humiliating you. So if you had a free school dinner at school, all they had to do was give you an envelope with a token in it so that you could go to dinner. They didn't do that. They made you line up in front of all the people that could pay for their dinners and put your hand out as if you were in Oliver Twist. I mean, it literally was disgusting. In 1993, which is not even that long ago, my English teacher took me to one side and said, Melanie, why are you even bothering trying to do your English GCSE? Because no one will ever want to read anything you've got to write. Like, wow. If you don't like my work, that's fine. But why'd you have to come and tell me that? And then I went, why have you got a problem with my work? I said, sir, but I really wanted to say something else. And he said, well, the problem with you, Melanie, is that all your stories are fundamentally flawed. And I said, why is that? And he said, because in all your stories, all the women have got power and women don't have any power.
Wow.
This is 1993, 3 years before Spice Girls and Girl Power. And I looked at him and thought, I've watched television. I've watched Joan Collins take over the empire of Dynasty. I've watched Julie Goodyear, Queen of the Rovers, so working class to high end. Margaret Thatcher, love or low thighs, running the country. I was like, you're an idiot, basically. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to carry on doing what I want to do and believing that women do have a choice to escape their backgrounds. And as I said, I was very, very poor. And I would read Jackie Collins novels at the time. And all of her stories were about women that came from the wrong side of the tracks that managed to claw their way up the ladder. And they didn't sleep their way up the ladder. They didn't marry it. They didn't inherit it. They fought for it. And I decided right then and there I was going to fight tooth and nail. And I did.
So, Melanie, I'm going to make a really loose link here between what you said about Oliver Twist and Charles Dickens and yourself. Yeah, because Charles Dickens, he was really poor, and he wanted to buy Gad Hill, which was a house that his father walked past, and he used to walk past and say, one day you could own that house if you work hard enough. And this does loosely link to, obviously, yourself at the moment, in terms of you've just bought a new house. Yeah, that you talked about yourself looking at that house. So how does that feel? And like, what was the motivation? Was that house always the motivation in your life? Like, I'm going to get that house. Was that like your ultimate dream sort of thing?
So weirdly, I bought my very first property at 30. And it took me 10 years to save that deposit. I did, if anyone's interested in property, I did a big interview with the Metro. It was about my life in property, and I really worked hard with property. And it took me 10 years, and I genuinely worked 364 days a year. The only day I worked was Christmas. I would do anything. I literally did every hour. I was ghostwriting. I was working in the agency. Sometimes I was literally working at the Ideal Home Show, handing out exhibition stuff. And that night I was out with InXS. I mean, literally, I just never stopped because I didn't want to take any money from anyone. I finally bought it. And I used to see this little tiny house. It's a studio, artist studio house. It's really fancy and really lovely. And I used to walk past it all the time and go, I'd love to live there. And a couple of years later, I sold my flat, and it had gone up in value by a couple of $100,000 because the Russians had moved into Chelsea. I had a ginormous mortgage. And I looked at this house, and it was on the market, and I actually went inside to see it, and I couldn't afford it. So I just said goodbye to it, and I left Chelsea, which, to be honest, was always a stretch that I'd even managed to get in there in the first place. I moved to North London. And then 14 years later, 2 weeks ago, I was just browsing. I wasn't really looking to buy. I wasn't planning to do anything because, again, anyone who wants to see my current house, you can go to my website and you can see I've done at homes in Hello and OK. You can see it's a lovely house. But I'd always had this house in my memory, and there it was, listed for sale. And I rang the agent and I said, I want to offer on this house. He said, but you haven't seen it. I said, I have seen that house. I saw it years ago. And he was like, really? I was like, I want to offer it. And it got accepted, and I got the keys today, and I go in tomorrow. And it feels like a reward for all those years of hard work. I never go, oh, look at me, I can go and buy a house like that. I think of the 14 years of waiting, the 10 years of working before. And like, you could look at my Twitter or my Instagram and go, oh, she's flaunting. But I never, ever, ever believe that I do that, because I put under always a line to go, they said I couldn't do it, but I did. You said I couldn't do it, but I've got it. And I think that, judging by, I don't get any bad stuff online. I literally never get any nasty comments at all, because people seem to like the fact that I genuinely go, I had nothing, I worked really hard, you can do it too. And I do that with my writing as well. My dyslexia is so terrible. So, for example, if I was to write Ruthless, the R would come out first, then the T, then the L, then I'd have to go back and put in the U. It's really hard work for me. It's terrible. So to write a book is a real commitment. So when it comes into your hands from someone that suffers from dyslexia that badly, they worked hard.
Melanie, how did you, with someone who suffers with dyslexia and struggles to create like that, and I imagine your typing is very similar in that way, how did you deal with that? Did you use softwares, or did you have a bit of help with that from external?
Yeah, really bizarrely, by some miracle, it doesn't happen on the computer.
Wow.
I don't understand why it doesn't. Like, there's something about the QWERTY that basically makes it work, but like by hand. So like, my worst nightmare is when they say to me, you've got 1,000 books to sign, because literally, like, I'm signing each one, and every single one's different. When I went to buy the house the other day, they nearly wouldn't let me buy it, because they were like, this is not your signature. I was like, trust me, I've never signed my name twice in the same way. Any fraudsters watching, I am on to you, don't try it on. But no, so it only happens to me. It happens to me there. So, or when I'm reading, when I read back and at words will just. But at school, again, they didn't investigate what was wrong with me. They put me in the bottom set, and back in those days, the bottom set was not people that had learning difficulties, because that's what dyslexia is. It was people who didn't want to be at school. So just weren't interested. They just threw me away and said, you're never going to amount to anything. So going back to Charles Dickens and the house, did he buy it?
Yeah, boy, yeah, just like you did. He lived in there for a little bit as well. Yeah.
See, I was thinking more along the lines of if my school was ever to come up for sale, I'd buy it.
You can get Chris to work there. Wicked.
What, a bulldozed school? I don't think so.
Well, you can knock it down. Anyway,
Yeah, I'll
so
help you knock it down gladly.
let's
That's
talk
the
about
experience you've
Ruthless Women then, because we're deep in this conversation. This could go on for ages, but we want to talk about Ruthless Women as well. And I've got a few quotes that I'll line up, and then once I've done that, you can, if you would let us know what the story is about for people that haven't perhaps heard it. But the first one is, it's a very good one. Everything 50 Shades Should Have Been, from Heat magazine. That is a massive comment.
Yes.
And then we have an erotic thriller with twists so shocking you'll be talking about it for years.
Well, I don't have the time, otherwise I'll forget what they are.
No, you don't have to. I'm just reading these out because I like them.
I've got a good reason as to why they say what they say.
Okay. Let's go with the first one then.
The first one, the reason it says that is because all the sex in this book is from the female perspective. So no man takes advantage of a woman in this book. So this is quite a revolutionary book as far as, I mean, books don't tend to be written like that. The man tends to be sexually in control. In this book, if a man got out a pair of handcuffs and a blindfold, the women in it would, 1, laugh at him, 2, decide that if they weren't going to laugh at him, trick him into wearing them, and then go off and bang his mate. Like, literally, this does not happen. These women are sexually empowered. And in my experience, women are now sexually empowered. You know, we do call cabs and tell you it's time to leave. And we do our own thing. I tell a story, and I've told this many times, and this will probably be the first time you guys have ever heard this. It's a real woman's story that anyone listening will know about this, any women anyway. There's a time in every woman's life where we really like you guys, and we've done everything we can to get with you, and we really want it to work. And you know, we've been spending ages like with this moment, and then finally it leads up to the big night, and the big night happens, and it's all been lovely and whatever. You're a woman, you're a girl at this stage, not a woman. You're younger, and you lay there. How graphic can we get on this? Can we get graphic?
Go for it. Yeah,
go for it.
You lay there. You're in the wet patch. You're uncomfortable. Your knee is in our back. You're leaning on our hair. We're twisted. You lean into our ear and you go, "Are you comfortable?" And the young woman in it goes, "Yes, I am." And then you become a woman and you go, "I'm not actually. Can you move? Lie in your own wet patch, and better still, I've called you an Uber." Right? That's the new world. We've changed.
Definitely.
And this book signifies the fact that women no longer lie in the wet patch.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic description. And
that's why Heat called it Everything 50 Shades Should Have Been, because in that book, she was controlled by him all the time. And in this book, sexually, the women are in control.
Yeah, when it said about the twist as well, I really want to talk about the ending, but you can't obviously do that right now. But what we want to do is, for the people that haven't read this book yet, can you tell us about the story? Because I don't want to jump into things without them knowing what that's about.
Okay, so basically, Ruthless Women is set on a fictitious soap opera that's been on air for 39 years in the beautiful coast of Jersey. It's in a fictitious area called St. Augustine's Cove. And on the show, which is like a very gentle Downton Abbey type vibe, it's been broadcast all over the world for years. It's huge in like Mumbai to Malibu, and everybody watches it, but not so much in England because it's kind of sort of more of an export show. And on the island, if you are in the show, you get to live on the island. So anybody who's in the show doesn't want to leave the show because it's a whole lifestyle. But all the men that run the show are sexist, egotistical, chauvinistic pigs, and they treat the women terribly, which in my experience in Soapland is very, very common. And I'm sure you'll have the press release there. You'll have lots of quotes from famous women that have backed up that rhetoric of that's how the behavior is. So the show is about to get cancelled because the world's changed. People are streaming. They're watching YouTube shows like this one right now that we're doing instead of watching this very expensive drama. And so it hangs in the balance as to whether it's going to survive or not. But what happens is it gets sold to a woman called Madeleine Kane, and all the women in Falcon Bay, the fictitious show, rejoice, thinking that they've finally got a woman who's going to be on their side. And she turns up, and she is the biggest bitch of all of them. And she decides that they're going to reboot the show and nobody's job is safe, which unleashes a battle of the sexes of who will make the cut of this new show. And they turn the show into a mixture of a reality and drama show, which of course mirrors how life is now, because soaps are not being watched the way that they were. Things are changing all the time. So, and it leads to what has been described as one of the most shocking conclusions ever in a book. And I will say that if you haven't read it, you will never forget it.
Honestly, I did not see that coming.
I wrote it and I didn't see it coming, and it wasn't meant to happen. That's how real these characters are. We didn't want that to happen. We tried not for it to happen, and we couldn't do. I can't use any other words other than say we couldn't stop that happening. It had to happen.
But when you talked about, I've read online that this may be produced as a soap in reality.
Yes,
you could so see that working and being absolutely shocking on the screen. Absolutely.
Because you would never see it coming. And there are two big twists to this book, aren't there? And they are, both of them are jaw-dropping moments that you just never, ever forget. And the best thing about this book, it's a bit like Fight Club, like you can't talk about it. You just have to buy it. Your friends have to buy it so you can talk about it, and only then. So what I've loved about it, and it's sold like 25,000 hardbacks, which is amazing in like a month for someone who's only ever been published in paperback before. And number 4 on the Sunday Times list, right behind Richard Osman and Danielle Steele, and massive authors that have huge followings. Little old me in there. And people telling their friends to buy it, and their friends buying it, people buying 2 or 3 different versions of it. Some of them have got the red spine, which was a limited edition. Some of them haven't. Some download the audio. I've been described, even though I've had a mainstream hit, as a cult author.
Okay.
And they said, how do you feel about that? I said, I feel absolutely great about it, as long as you spell it right.
Well, do you know what? I'm very interested to know that you captivated these characters very well, and instantly off the bat, you met one of these male characters that are very, I don't know what the word is, but you know what I mean. And you really got an impression of how they act and how the room was felt. But how true to some of these characters are these written to? And have you had any sort of grief along the way that people say, you're talking about me there, clearly?
Well, here's the irony, is that they don't recognize themselves.
Okay.
So they recognize other people. They're like, oh, that's her, isn't it? And you're like, yeah, it's her. Yeah, it's her. And so, no, as you will, do you have the press release there for this?
We have, but not on screen right now. I haven't got that.
And if you can get any of those quotes up, the quotes from the actresses that are actually in soap operas blew me away, because this book does not paint soap operas in a good light in any shape or form. And I thought, obviously, I was an agent when I'm not agenting at the moment. I'm concentrating on writing. But I was still representing people from Coronation Street, EastEnders, Emmerdale, all of them. And I thought, well, this is it. I'm going to get my cards, because I've basically written all day saying that life on set is awful. It's a monstrous place. Everybody's vile. Everybody's at it. Everybody's trying to stick something in you, either a knife or something personal. And they absolutely loved it, from Stephanie Beecham through to Beverly Collard, through to all of them. Like, even like the soap actresses that don't tweet a lot about things, tweeted, you've got to read this book, which I took as a huge sign that they wanted people to know that all that glitters definitely isn't golden.
Yeah.
And my tagline for the whole thing has always been, what you see on screen, and 25 million people a week watch soaps in the UK combined by the time you put all the figures together, which is over a quarter of the country. But they're still looked down on because, of course, they'd rather celebrate 10 million for Line of Duty, which is only on once a year, than they would the fact that we are a working class country. And therefore, we watch soaps. They're like an extension of a family. And in this book, the women are fighting for their lives in the same way that the actresses that I've represented fight for their jobs. Because if you're an attractive woman and you're in a soap opera, somebody upstairs has stuck a sign on your back saying best before. The opening chapter of this book has a big scene where Jake Monroe is talking about casting an actress in the show, and the casting director says, okay, so she's going to be like 50, and he goes, 50? Don't give me old mutton, I want lamb. Now 50 is not old, but that is how men talk. And when that chapter went out, and I got lots of emails from women that had seen it, they said, is this X? Now, you would think that I would get one name sent loads of times. I got over 50 men's names.
Wow.
Asking me if it was that. So that tells you how many Jake Monroes there are out there.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I mean, it really did set the scene in that very first few pages. And
totally accurate. I've had so many messages from people that work in the room that said, literally, you nailed it. It's exactly that. There was an actress that got fired recently, about a year ago, who literally, she'd gone in to question something about her character, and when she walked out of the door, he just said, we're killing her off. Literally, just for asking something.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, that first scene almost, that it's not really a spoiler, I guess, but someone gets let go, and you know, just for being that one person that made the mistake of questioning or talking at that time. And was it really that sort of brutal that people would lose their career over that certain?
Yes, but we also deal with the legislation of it. They also deal with the fact that he's going to have to pay her off, otherwise she can sue.
Yeah.
It's very, even though this book is quite outrageous, it's very factual. So really more of a faction title, because it is just like this. Just like this.
So here's a question then. If it's kind of more factual and based on experience, was the thriller side of things inputted to be more entertaining, or was it genuinely that kind of?
No, I think, without being able to spoil the spoiler, that element signifies the danger of everything. So the life and deathness of, because if you've ever been in a soap, right, you're famous forever. If you never work again, you're famous forever, but you don't get paid forever. So therefore, I believe that soap actors that have been in soaps deserve some sort of pension scheme, because their anonymity is gone forever and they're ridiculed for the rest of their lives. And newspapers, people on Twitter, whatever, will signal them out and search for them and go, oh, look at such a person working in a shop. What are they supposed to do? So when you sign a deal with a soap opera, you're signing a pact to sell your soul, because your identity is never coming back to you. There's
not many actors out there that actually spend a long time in a soap and then move on to something else, because they're so typecast. They're stuck in that role, aren't they?
But then when they do, they then look down their nose at where they're from, and I hate that. I mean, nothing I hate more than when you watch 40 years of a show and famous people that got their break from it don't come on it, and I'm just like, you know what? Like, remember where you're from. Like, this show gave you that break. There's such a lot of snobbery around it, which has made the same thing. So I was in the Times. They gave me 4 pages and gave me an amazing review on me. Didn't review the book. So I can get in there, but the book can't. Oh no, we look down on the book, but we let her in. So there's such a snobbery around what is populist reading. It's like, you know, I could have written a book on Emily Bronte's Secret Diary, you know, and I would have got into every single section, because I've written a book that's based on 3 passionate women trying to save a soap opera and having a lot of great sex along the way. They're like, oh, we'll ignore that one. And yet,
do you know what? It's almost, though, a type of genre that isn't massively out there. And in my eyes, I think that means it's more of a gem. And I think especially the UK audience would be, especially when they love of soap operas, would be a massive market for them.
They spoke in their ranks, didn't they? They took it straight. It didn't just get into the top 10, it got to number 4, and it stayed at number 4. And it's now 8 weeks in the Sunday Times bestsellers list. You know, and I mean, I'm still doing TV. I'm doing Steph's Pat Lunch next week and Jeremy Vine. Like, this book is still growing. It's number 4 in Australia, number 2 in New Zealand. It's traveling all over the world. And it's still never got reviewed in a single cultural section in the UK. Not one.
Wow.
So, Melanie, with you being almost a pioneer in that aspect, then, like, what advice would you give to somebody that may have been in your shoes, like, you know, say they're 19 and got similar ambitions, but think, no, it's never going to happen for me, even though they're seeing, obviously, you break the mold and go forward? What advice would you give them?
Well, I would say that you are in a much luckier position than I ever was, because you have what we're doing right now. You have a platform, you have a voice, you have a space, you have a reach out. Back then when I was doing it, the fact that I made it is a miracle. We didn't have the receipts of all the people that I work with, all the bands and all this. No one would believe my backstory. Nobody goes from the poverty that I did to the success that I did, and then at 40 becomes a best-selling author and columnist for a news. I mean, I've worked in Fleet Street now for 5 years. I don't even have. I didn't go to college. I'm the rarity. However, the new breed of people coming up now don't need to do any of that, because if your work is good enough, you just self-publish and someone will pick it up. So you get to do all of that, your voice and your platform, influencing, Instagramming, YouTubing, like everybody's watching all the time. So I would say you don't need anybody's approval to put your work out there. And in fact, most publishers are absolute idiots. They can't see a hit from a mum. They are, and I don't care. Like, I'm willing to say what I think, and it's true. They don't. It's like Ruthless Women was turned down by 29 publishers. 30th publisher took it. I was going to self-publish. The 30th publisher made a hell of a lot of money. Sorry to all you, and it made nothing. When I had the Thunderglass out, Waterstones would not even stock it. Right?
Wow.
They would not stock it, and they stocked a book. I won't name her. I'll tell you why, because she's literally not worth the air from my mouth. But they backed this other woman's book, and they put it in every window and every display, and it was everywhere. She sold 900 copies. I sold 7,000 in 3 days. She was in every single cultural review section. I was in none.
Wow.
Okay.
Just shows the power of the people.
And real, like, we're talking to real people now. No one can sustain these things. If I was on like an official literary podcast from like a big organization, they wouldn't let me speak like this. I'm a renegade author because I'm inside, but I'm still lobbying bricks about and smashing windows and saying I don't care, because they're wrong. There's too many gatekeepers around trying to tell you no. If you think what you've done is good enough, put it out there.
Definitely.
Share it. Get other people's opinions. Don't let anyone tell you. So many successful books recently in the last few years have been picked up that were already self-published.
I agree. And the standard of self-publishing as a result of being able to do that is massively increased.
Absolutely. And I still wouldn't rule it out. I mean, if I am a cult author, and that's what I end up becoming. I mean, so at the moment we know I can sell about 50,000 copies of pretty much anything. And interestingly enough, I can sell about 50,000 tickets to my shows. If you publish that yourself, that's a serious markup.
Massive.
A big chunk of change as well, yeah. Definitely.
So, and artists are doing it all the time and are selling their work before it exists and so on. So, I mean, I am with the publishing house at the moment, but who knows what the future brings? And I wouldn't be scared to jump.
That's amazing.
I mean, we have some staple writing community chat show questions now that we're going to ask you. So the first one is, if you could change the ending to any, I'm going to open it up to, we've got novels, films, TV, anything. You could change the ending to it. Which thing would you change and why?
Oh my God, throw me. Oh God.
I think we need to start sending this ahead, Chris. I really do.
Yeah, you do, because I would have thought about this. Give me another one.
Okay, so go on.
Okay, if you could take the character from anything, TV, film, books, and write about that character or put him into one of your stories, what character would that be?
Much easier. Definitely. I would go back in time and pull out Alexis Carrington from Dynasty and build a series around her. I never understood why they didn't do it at the time. I mean, strong woman running a business. There was so much more to that narrative of what they could have done with her. And I think so many people have tried to replicate that. Well, the soap bitch is the most famous thing of all. Our subplot is the fact that they're looking for a new soap bitch to save the show. Yes, I would absolutely have done
that. The next question, I feel like you've touched on success quite an awful lot.
I'm
but
sure about your questions, Chris.
It's a bit of a morbid one, but you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your writing career. What would you be happy with? What is success to you?
Well, one, I hope it's not anytime soon. But two, I absolutely would be very happy if it said, "Here lies the author of Ruthless Women," because this is the book that I never thought I would write. I only wrote it during a pandemic. I didn't get a chance to interrupt really when you said about the fact that I was so driven. I had actually accepted that Thunderglass and Thunderglass play was going to be my future because it was such a big tour, and we had Lionsgate after the rights. And when the pandemic came in and shut everything down, I suddenly had the time that I didn't have to write. And I think I wrote Ruthless Women with such an intensity that I'd never written before. It's like, you know, I didn't go to further education, but this would have been my degree, you know, this being the thing that did it. So if that's all it ever says on that, my headstone, and then underneath it, because obviously this is known as a bonkbuster, so it's fulfilled many a lonely night for people in lockdown. Gave a lot of people a lot of pleasure.
There's definitely some interesting scenes in that book. I will admit that.
All true. They're all true.
How true to detail?
Absolutely. Literally, I almost went bang on. But
okay, then I'll say nothing.
That scene in the car, I saw with my own eyes.
Wow.
This book, there's a famous actress, and she's in her 50s, and a 25-year-old driver comes to pick her up, and there's a frisson of sexual energy between them, and before you know it, they're at it. They're like a rabbit. And I literally was stood there holding the purse of the nation's sweetheart, watching her being ploughed in the back of this, like, car with the door open. And like 40 minutes later, we were on the Soap Awards carpet, and she was smiling like butter wouldn't melt, and something else probably.
Of course she was.
So, you know, it is real.
Yeah.
Real. I mean, or I did it myself.
Well, okay, so when lockdown happened and your smash hit play, I mean, took off and
it reopens next year.
Yeah, so I'm going to say, are there plans for this to reopen, and what's the attention like for the early feedback? And I know it had some great actors in there.
Well, we already had 1 million at the box office before we closed. I mean, it was devastating. So we open next year, and we're doing a 3-week preview again up north, then it will tour nationally. So it's about a year away. But I love doing the Thunderglass because the Thunderglass is just one chapter. It's just a reunion dinner from hell. So as an audience member, you are genuinely eavesdropping on what really happens, and everybody leaves that show with their mouth on the floor. Like it's the best. It's such a great show. And when I first wrote it, I said to my partner Angela that I produced with, I don't think I can go in. I don't think I can watch it. I'm too nervous. She was like, you can't go in. I was like, what if they don't laugh? What if they don't? And within minutes, there's some really great lines. Beverly Callard and COLEEN NOLAN, and they literally, the audience go crazy for it. And like I mean, when I say this dinner party is dinner party from hell, at one point they are literally punching each other in the face.
Wow.
And it's true to life. I mean, I couldn't name names right now because I wouldn't want to spoil anything, but right now I'm in a WhatsApp group with 2 bands that are in reunions, and you should see the WhatsApp groups. I mean, literally they are like, people would love to read them, and if you ever want to see what that really is like, you can see the Thunderglass.
Well, maybe that's a show on the road for the Writing Community Chat Show, Chris. We should go and see that play.
Oh, you guys, you are absolutely welcome, and you will love it. I'm very confident. Thunderglass, the book, probably not so much because it's a long story to tell that, but that chapter, which makes the play, very clever. This will definitely be a television series. Ruthless Women, you couldn't put on the stage; it's too big.
Definitely.
I was going to say, Chris, we normally, I mean, this is just testament to how much we've enjoyed speaking to you. Normally we do half an hour and then we get questions from the community. And obviously we're 50 minutes in, so we'll probably switch straight to getting questions from people because I should imagine they've got them. So
guys, yeah, definitely. There's questions from you guys. If you've got them, please send them in right now and we'll ask them live within reason. And we did have a quiz, but I'm not sure how much time Melanie's got, so we'll see what happens with these questions. But anyway, so when those questions are coming in, so you mentioned already that there is, Ruthless Men in the pipeline. So, okay, so
that goes up for auction next week. Because I only signed a 1-book deal because I knew this was a hit book, and I didn't have tie myself in. So I'm actually being sold next week in an auction. I know that it's already a big deal, and that's exciting. So, and again, we refer back to that cult status, is that they're now going, right, so how do we turn her into a global thing? So that I've had New Zealand, hit in Australia, hit here. They've translated it into Russian, Hungarian and Romanian. So, I mean, it's got legs. And so obviously now it's attracting people that are going, how can we turn those 25,000, 50,000 cells into 500,000 cells? So I'm interested to see who can offer the best development deal, really, rather than the money.
So Melanie, why do you think that success is going to different countries as well? Because obviously you've got a very British sort of essence to the novel in terms of soaps. I know other countries have soaps as well, but why do you think it's that the fact that you're from your background, that you know what people are like in general, and can sort of channel that what the people like, in a sense? Because you said obviously the play was a huge success, the book's been a huge success with the people. Do you think that that's part of the sort of magic in it, in a sense, in terms of why it's been so successful elsewhere as well?
I'd love to say that, but sadly the answer is because it's a Sunday Times bestseller. So because as soon as it's a Sunday Times bestseller, everybody wants it, and that's why it's the holy grail. I mean, for me personally, I don't care about that. I only care about its success and the fact that it's got brilliant reviews. If it didn't have great reviews and you only had the status of Sunday Times bestseller, they wouldn't do it. But you've only got to look on Amazon or anywhere to read. People go, I just couldn't put this book down. And it was described as a binge read. And I think because we're in lockdown, people wanted something escapist. And there hasn't been anything glamorous and escapist and sexual for quite a while. So I think everybody has sex, everybody likes escapism, and everybody has watched a soap opera somewhere. Throw those three things in together, and you know you're going to hit a lot of common grounds.
Do you know what? I honestly thought this was not my type of thing to read. I really enjoyed the concept and the way the twists happened, and just I was impressed with that in the way that I wasn't my natural read. So I can definitely recommend that. And there's some questions coming in, so we'll ask those very shortly, guys.
I've got one more question, if you will, Chris.
Yeah, I've got one as well, but go on.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay, so my question would be that you spoke about how you wrote your first book when you were sort of 19 years old, and then Ruthless Women is kind of a recent book, and now you're moving into your next one. How much has that process changed as a writer for you?
Massively. I don't even recognise myself in the new book. Ruthless Men is already a completely different beast to Ruthless Women, and I didn't think I'd ever be able to match Ruthless Women, and I think I've already topped it. And
wow.
First chapter is out at the moment, and everybody that's read it, all the houses that are bidding on it, have literally gone, oh my God. And I read it back and was like, oh my God. But again, I feel like I can't take credit for it, because I genuinely do feel that I am just possessed by the characters, and that I'm just here to deliver their story. And I've got a little theory about that, because I've been an agent for so many years. And as an agent, you are essentially everybody's bitch. It's your job to do what you're told, and you get very well paid for it. And you are responsible to work out mortgage payments, where their children are going to school, if they're in trouble with the press, get their career back on track, fix their plastic surgery, work out whose husband is cheating. It never stops. And I did that for 20 years. And when the pandemic came on and shut me down, I think I reported to work to the fictitious actresses of Ruthless Women, who I now work for. So they're another set of clients that I basically am working for. And that's why I keep saying I don't feel like I can fully take the credit, because it feels like it's just coming out of me. Maybe it's PTSD from all those years. But
I love that. That's great.
If it is, I am glad that it's finally coming out in a positive way. Because I've been treated really badly by some clients who I don't represent anymore, and I've been treated really wonderfully by some clients who I still do work with and know. And some of the women in this book are awful, aren't they? And there are some of the women in show business.
So my question, then, I'm going to take it down a different route. Men are notoriously bad at writing sex scenes. So I was just wondering what advice you would give to somebody writing a sex scene. What makes a good sex scene?
For a man.
Well, just in general, like somebody who wants to tackle a sex scene but thinks, oh, the whole throbbing thing that comes up quite a little bit, like.
So I get a lot of problems with balls deep. Like people have a problem with that. Like so, but I've talked this about my friends and stuff, and we don't have a problem with that. So it's in my book, and it depends on the phrasing. But so I mean, really, I guess it depends if you're any good in bed or not, because it depends if you know what you're talking about. So if you're sorry guys, anyone that's watching this that this is about to describe, but if you're someone who doesn't have sex and watches a lot of porn and is alone at home, you're going to write some really weird stuff because people don't have sex like that. And that's part of what's wrong with the new generation of kids growing up now, that like boys are treating women really badly because they think that's sex. Sex isn't like that. Women don't want to be spoken to like that. It doesn't work like that. So if you're good in bed, you can write great sex scenes. If you're possibly very frustrated, you might be able to write good sex scenes because you're going to use your imagination. So my advice would be write what you've done or write what you'd like to do, and then read that.
I think a bit of the life experience comes in there as well, because in some of the earlier scenes in your book, there was certain in locations, and locations give effect to certain scenarios. So there's obviously experience in that respect that pays tribute to how to write those scenes better as well. So I'm guessing that helps.
Well, it depends. Well, no, it comes from that. So we talk about HRT a lot in the book because these women are older, and obviously like celebrities are on a very different blend of HRT. They get testosterone, gives them a stronger sex drive, which is what obviously men have. Women generally have estrogen in HRT, but celebrity women get given testosterone, which gives them that little so therefore they have sex that they maybe other women are not having because they're not having that blend. So we talk about that so that women reading the book don't feel bad about themselves, and that they don't think, well, I don't feel like I want to have sex all the time. So these women are superhuman, because soap actresses have to be superhuman. They have to film 60 episodes of 60 scenes a week, do like 6 days a week, work in basically a factory, go home, sort out the kids, still have a normal life or whatever. And so in order to do that, if they're on HRT, they tend to have a special blend. So that sort of passionate sex that's in there is very much true to life, because one actress that I knew went to this hormone specialist and she was given a blend of it, and he gave her some testosterone and said, only take so much. And within 2 weeks, she'd taken too much. She had a beard and an STD. It's powerful stuff. Like I can't explain other than that. The beard, the STD she got from Tinder. But very true to life. Read it.
It's amazing, honestly. I can't recommend enough. Right, we've got a couple of questions there to ask just before we finish up, and we'll get those done because we are pushing on for time. I do apologize, guys, but this is just too much. It's too good. Okay, so the first question in from Anya. It's a brilliant question. What is the most delicious way someone could die?
Oh, well, the most delicious way someone could die is in this book, and I'm afraid it would be a spoiler to tell you how, but you will agree with me, right?
Absolutely.
There is no better way to die than the way somebody dies in this book. So if you haven't read this book, Anya, read it and you will discover that is how delicious it is in many more ways than one. That word.
It really is.
That word will mean a lot to you when you've read it.
Drama. There's so many things to name. I don't want to mention it in case something comes out that I shouldn't. But yeah, good question. Good answer. Thank you.
Great question. And also, revenge is delicious because, of course, they say is best served cold. And so therefore, serving anything is delicious because you know that whatever you're giving them, they're going to check on.
Yes, yes. Hello, Scott. Hello to you. Did you use any of your skills as an agent writing the book?
Hello, Scott. I absolutely did. Every monster, witch, and rat bag that I've come across in 20 years is in here. And if you think that people don't behave like this behind closed doors, then you're wrong. They absolutely do. And if you're looking to work out who is possibly the most horrible in show business or in media anywhere, look for the person holding up the be kind sign, because the ones that hold up the signs going, be kind, be generous, we just need to share self-love, I want to share a message with you that we need to be kinder to ourselves, are generally grade A, stone cold, rotten to the core bitches.
That is awesome.
Fact,
I love that.
follow the sign, find the monster.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got a couple in there. Joanne Paulson, hello. Can you see certain actresses in your movie of Ruthless Women? Can you name one or two?
Yeah, obviously, if I was controlling Ruthless Women, I would cast all of my favourite actresses here, but I'm guessing this is more of a worldwide thing. Absolutely. I know that people have been coming in that work with the likes of Meryl Streep, Jane Fonda, Goldie Hawn, Demi Moore, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Melanie Griffiths, huge Hollywood stars.
That is literally the who's who of
Yes.
But there's 7 female characters that are all over the age of 40 that go all the way up into their 70s. Books like this just don't exist. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see this happen. But yeah, it's going to be, I mean, I'd love to see Goldie Hawn in it. I'd love to see it.
You mentioned, like, you know, a couple of your favorites. Have you got, who do you work with these days in terms of soap people that are kind of favorite people of yours?
Beverly Callard is absolutely adorable, so lovely. Claire King, who plays Kim Tate and Emmerdale. Again, a role reversal of Be Kind. Playing a bitch, probably really nice. She is super lovely. Nothing like that. She was in Marks and Spencer's recently, and a woman hit her over the head with an umbrella and said, "That's me, bitch." People really believe that soap operas are real. Of course, because she's famous, she couldn't hit her back. But like, I mean, they're absolutely lovely, lovely women. Just, I mean, like, soap queen, true queens of soap that have been watched for like 20 years, that have been watched by like 20 million people, are generally really lovely ones. The ones that are up and coming, that are smaller or new and have got smaller storylines and have just arrived, they're generally a bit above this station.
Wow. That's a good answer. It really is. I think there might be one or two. Let's do one more. And this is from Jodie. Happy birthday, Jodie. Oh, no, that's the wrong Jodie.
No, it's the right Jodie.
It's the right Jodie. Happy birthday, Jodie.
It's the right Jodie.
Okay, as an advocate for powerful women, is there any specific moment in your life that led you to feeling strongly about this?
I would say yes. My dad, when I was 12 years old, my gran used to get the News of the World, doesn't exist anymore, but there used to be a Sunday supplement on it. And on the front cover was 3 women. One was Stephanie Beecher, and one was Raquel Welch, one was Elizabeth Taylor. And it was like 50 and fabulous. And my dad said to me, what you need to learn is that all the women over the age of 30 are finished. And I was 12 years old. I remember thinking, that is a really weird thing to say, and I don't think you're right. And that installed in me very early that I was going to be a big champion of older women. I am 44, so I am now one of those older women, but I was fighting for women in my whole career, and have done the whole way through, to show that women are not defined by age, weight or size. They come in all different shapes and sizes, and sexy comes in all different forms. And I'd like to think that in my career I've done a lot for that. So although I'm not glad he said it, because it's a pretty horrible thing to say, it definitely gave me a sort of punch in the right direction to go, yeah, men like this need to be silenced.
Wow, that is a powerful motive, and often is. You mentioned, like, you come from a bit of a rags to riches story with you, and clearly your clearly your drive and your passion has got you from strength to strength and from career to career. So all we can say is that all of us on the chat as well are completely inspired by your story, and just you've done a fantastic job. So well done. And as we're finishing up, we've got a website that, by the way, your website I have been looking over is fantastic. It's really good.
I put as much stuff up as I can so that people can see, that you can do it. Just because someone tells you can't. I mean, all I've ever been told my whole life is no. So, and when I stopped listening for a yes, I started getting what I wanted. So I try and share as much of my story as possible. That no one has ever said yes to me. So not professionally. in real life, I get a lot of yeses. But professionally, it's always no, it won't work. No, nobody wants to know. So I just don't listen anymore and just do what I want.
Here's a comment that's come in, and someone who's a big fan of Jackie Collins. Someone's written, I think we're witnessing the birth of a new Jackie Collins, Lily Cooper, Elle James, all rolled up as one. How does that make you feel?
Absolutely honoured, and Lawrence, thank you very much for that. I was very recently asked to write the foreword for a Jackie Collins book that's being reissued, which means that my name is going to be on the cover of her book.
No way.
Yeah, with her name, and that just feels like such an amazing connection to have the two linked together to someone that I really looked up to. She again was ignored by the critics. It's like her book. She sold 500 million copies of her book, and yet she was thumbed a nose at by critics. Sorry, I'd rather sell 500 million copies and be looked at than sell 5,000 and have a great review in The Guardian.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
So one of the things I've just mentioned about your website, which is on the bottom of the screen right now, guys, when you go into sort of your other tabs, there's one that you talk about your books. And what I really love, and this is a tip for anyone with an author website, everyone that sent you a picture of photoshopped or photographed your books, you've put a collage of these photos up, which I think is brilliant.
I'm going to do that with a new book as well, because it's great to see them out there and alive, living in their new spaces to where they're going to turn up and where they're at. And I love that. And I think get everybody who's got a book release, get someone to send you a picture of it. I've never seen it before. I just came up with that idea and thought it looked great.
It really is. And honestly, we speak to a lot of authors on here that are established, or they're very much indie authors. And I think there are a lot of people that don't have this sort of thing on their website. And it's probably one of the most simple things you can do, because people have those images. Well, it's out there. I mean, we build everyone up. We don't hide the joy. We spread it and lift people up. So I think it's brilliant. But definitely check the website out, because there's so much stuff on there that's very valuable. And the tour stuff, we'll be keeping an eye on that, because I think that is something we could go and see, Chris, and it'll be another great asset to our show.
Yeah,
definitely.
Excited.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
So go out and buy Melanie's book now. I'm sure you will, because the story and everything that Melanie's just said has been absolutely fabulous. And yeah, people are already following you, which is fantastic.
And find me on social media, guys, and tell me what you think about the book. And whoever it was that was commenting on my hair a minute ago, because I haven't had time to have it blow dried, so I hope it isn't letting you down too much.
I didn't see that.
It said, it said, Melanie, your hair.
No way.
Yeah.
No abuse on this show.
Yeah, we don't read the comment. Well, I don't read the comments anyway, but I'm sure they were commenting on how wonderful it looks, because
no abuse since Mr. Floppy. Anyway, that's yeah, that was the only time we've had abuse. It was Mr. Floppy. Anyway, so guys, thank you so much for joining us. Melanie, we can't thank you enough. And honestly, I'm telling you now, our audience would love that book. So please go out and buy Ruthless Women today, and let Melanie know what you think of it, and send her the picture. You can go on the website. And do you know what we can do post-COVID?
Oh, I thought you were going to say we could do a picture.
We could do a picture, but what we could do is, when we go see the show, if people are around that area that watch the show, listen to the show, they can come and watch it with us.
Definitely. So, we'll be there for 3 weeks. So we can set up a little booth for you and stuff, and you can have a little area.
Oh, no, that's tempting. That's tempting.
You can do merchandise. See the businesswoman in me. Never.
Hey, we're open to that. Let us know. We'll be up there. Anyway, so guys, thank you so much. We will see you next week for another amazing guest coming on. Chris, do you want to say who that is?
Yeah, we've got the author of You coming in on Monday. So another really brilliant writer coming on the show on Monday. So Carolyn Kempness is coming on to talk about her new book, You Love Me, which is obviously the return of Joe Goldberg. So join us on Monday for that.
There's some amazing comments coming in. You look gorgeous in capitals. So totes beautiful. Need a trip to the UK now for the show. Is it going abroad at any time? I don't know. Not at the moment. So come to the UK here. Why not? Once with a COVID passport. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't
know. Don't bring any variants.
Yeah, keep it over there. We don't want it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Please stay safe, away from COVID. Enjoy the weekend with your friends and family. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Melanie, thank you. We will see you soon, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.